So we're going to talk about community pages, and we've talked already about recommended search pages, and I sort of introed this whole thing. And with community pages, community pages to me are the most important page on the website, and they're also the most overlooked page. And for a lot of realtors and a lot of agents and a lot of offices and everybody who builds a website, there's something really important to understand about community pages, and that is that we look at them as a backstop, as sort of like a final resting place of content for a specific town. So let me just describe what a community page is for those of you who aren't living in the year 2018 yet and don't have a website with a community page. Put a community page on your website. The reason we have them is to explain more about the area, right? So I live in Burlington, Vermont. That's where Union Street Media is headquartered. So there are lots of towns around Burlington, Vermont, but Burlington, Vermont is the typical focus. Now, having a community page about Burlington, Vermont just means we're sort of outlining, if you want to find out more information about Burlington, Vermont, here are the things you can find out about. Everybody's got these community pages for the most part on their website, but I think that they all look at them as sort of a dead end. Here's all the information you might need about Burlington, Vermont, and it stops right there, and that's where the website stops, right? And so if you're going to write a community page, from an agent's point of view and from an office point of view, you go, oh, I get it. I know I need a community page, but everybody's got community pages. So all I'm doing is building another page that's going to take me a lot of time. It has to be unique content, like we talked about before. You can't copy and paste from Wikipedia or from some Chamber of Commerce website because that'll just ruin the whole effect. And secondly, for you, it's you're going, well, that information's already out there. So what do I need a community page for? I think we have to look at community pages as in a completely different light. Community pages aren't the stopping point or aren't a page. It's not even a page for information. You know what the community page is? The community page is a doorway through to the rest of the website, right? Like that is your springboard to going into a lot of different directions about Burlington. So I want you to look at it as a place where all the other pieces of information about Burlington, Vermont that you're going to put in there, the rec searches, so those are the pages that have the listings on them like we talked about last week, where we've got listings and we write a little bit of information about Burlington. There are going to be other rec searches that tie into that community page. Maybe it's in Burlington, Vermont, we have beautiful Lake Champlain over here, right? And everybody wants to live on Lake Champlain. So we need waterfront listings. Not just waterfront listings, but we need listings that allow you access to Lake Champlain. So all those things are going to be interconnected, right? So the community page is going to have information on it, right? It's going to be a whole page of information. It's not going to have listings on it. But what it's going to do is start sending people in directions. It's a map. It's a map for that entire town. And it's a map. What the other beautiful thing that community pages do, and I'm moving around a little bit here, so I hope I'm not throwing the thing out of focus, but the other thing that community pages do well is they teach you what your next piece of content is. And I think that's your problem. I think that's the problem for everybody who creates websites. It's one thing to know that I need content, and there are a lot of people out there telling you you need content, but it's hard to know what to write about. And it can be very daunting, and you look at a mountain of information you're trying to provide on a town like Burlington, Vermont, which is the biggest town in Vermont. The biggest city in Vermont. And you probably have that similar situation. It's either the smallest town in the area or, I don't know what to write about. I don't know how to start this. So great, I'm going to write a community page. I'm going to have a rec search page on Burlington, and then I'm stopped right there, right? I can't go any further than this because I've got all the information, but this information is sitting on Zillow. This information is sitting on my competitor's website. So what's the big deal? It's not separating me from the crowd. You have to have this page. It is a doorway to all the other articles you're going to write about Burlington, Vermont, and it's a springboard into the other areas. Not just direct searches, but the blog posts that you're going to write. Let's talk about neighborhoods, because this is how we build out Burlington, Vermont, right? And this is what a community page is meant to do. We're going to talk about Burlington, Vermont on the community page in about 4 paragraphs, right? We're not going to stuff this thing full of information. It's about 4 paragraphs, but it's the 4 paragraphs that you choose and the 4 paragraphs that you think are important. Now, I'll give you some pointers on what we think, what we do when we build community pages, and you can decide if this makes sense for you, or you can pop in and out different paragraphs. You're going to have a paragraph. In Burlington, Vermont, we have a number of different neighborhoods in Burlington, Vermont, right? There's the New North End, there's the South End, there's the sort of like Five Sisters neighborhood that's next to the Art District. There's the Hills area where you can see all of Lake Champlain. These places have different price ranges. These places have different attitudes. They even have different schools. And people move there for different reasons. So if you've got a paragraph that says, here are the neighborhoods in Burlington, Vermont, and you have a link in that paragraph to each one of the neighborhoods, and you've done a rec search for each neighborhood. Now you've set up a situation where now you know the next 4 or 5 rec searches you're going to build off of Burlington, Vermont. And when we go to those rec search pages for, let's say, the New North End of Burlington, we see the Burlington community page, we read the paragraph on the neighborhoods, we click on the New North End, and that takes us to a rec search page that has the listings for the New North End. But it also, right, we got to remember, it's got a unique description at the top that makes this page usable for Google and makes it, keyword rich. In that description, we're going to link to other things about the town. We're going to link to things about the school system. And I'm not talking about sending people off of your website. You can do that for now, set up the links, but eventually you want to blog about those particular pieces of that neighborhood, whether it's the school system or the taxes, or what kind of homes people buy there, or what's going on, what fun attractions are there, and food and dining is there, and how far outside of Burlington is it. That would probably be in the description, but you can see how you could start building a lot of content based on that concept, right? And so we're going to continue to go through that with neighborhoods, and then what we're going to do in maybe the next paragraph on the community page. So let's go back to the community page. We got a paragraph about neighborhoods. We got a paragraph about dining in Burlington. We've got a paragraph about the downtown area at large. We've got a paragraph about activities. Maybe we have a paragraph about Lake Champlain. The point is, it's your website. You're going to determine what you think are the important things to highlight in one paragraph, 6 to 8 sentences about each thing. And then through that, we're going to link to blog posts on dining in Burlington, some of the good restaurants, and you'll always be able to build. But the key is to make them interconnected. I can't stress that enough. The more you connect, Google travels through your website through links. That's how it knows where to go. You're telling them where to go by putting links on pages. The more links you put on a page and the more places you put them, you send them to go, and the more links on those pages that either return you back to that listing or that community page, or turn you into other areas about Burlington, Vermont dining or whatever it is, the stronger your quality score starts to grow, your domain authority becomes bigger around the term of Burlington, Vermont. Now, I just watched a show with Eric Sue and Neil Patel, who are 2 huge SEO guys, and they were talking about this concept, not in real estate, but they were talking about this concept in SEO in general and how you create content. And what they were saying is, look, the more you connect and the more you grow around a particular issue, the more possible it is for you to get better rankings on Google and allow for Google to see all this information that's been built around Burlington, Vermont. Now you're differentiating yourself. So the first step, I don't mean to get off into too many tangents here, but the idea is the community page is what you need to build. You absolutely have to build that, because that is the place where all the other links are going to come off of and return you back to. Because there's a second part with building a community page. It's great. It's got this SEO prowess now, right? We've got a strong quality score around Burlington. But the other thing it does, if we put it in our main navigation, so what we're talking about there is on your home page, there should be a link that says area information, and when you click on it, you should see Burlington and whatever other towns you have in your area, and you click on that, you go to the community page, and from there it takes you into a million different directions. The idea here is it should be on your main navigation, because that's what people look at and that's what where the end user goes. We found that through our own research. But you're organizing the website, not just for Google, which is great, but you're organizing the website for your end user, right? So now you've sent them in a direction. They want to look at Burlington, Vermont. You've sent them to Burlington, Vermont, and you've set up almost like a Dewey Decimal System, if I'm allowed to use that term, because probably dates me as a child of the 80s, but it sends you in a million different directions and it organizes the website. So yes, it should be in the main navigation, but once you get to that community page, you have organized your website by town and you've sent them in a million different directions. So I already talked about, you've essentially created a library around Burlington, Vermont. It's got to be unique, right? It's got to be information that you think is relevant. You're the one out there. You're the one, you trust your instincts. You should be talking about the things you want to talk about. It's also going to do what it brings down the pay-per-click, which is, that's a dicey area, right? So when you are paying for advertising to show up in Burlington, Vermont, if you have rich keyword-rich content on your website and you have a lot of information there, well, Google wants to show that off. And they will actually rank you higher in the paid results, and they will take down the cost of the pay-per-click, the cost per click that you're paying, because your content is so much more relevant than the guy who just has a page for Burlington with a bunch of listings on it. That's not unique. It doesn't really enrich the experience for the end user. Google is all about enriching the experience for the end user. So you need to do that. You need to do that. And when you do that, the pay-per-click costs start to come down a little bit. I wouldn't rely on that, but I certainly, it's something, it's an added bonus. Quality leads, right? Right, how can we forget that? Because everybody wants leads. And here, what we're doing again is, we're building a site that's getting people to go look in directions. Do they want waterfront listings on Burlington? Do they want a neighborhood listing? When you start seeing people go there and then connect with you, now you've got a lead that is further down the purchase funnel. And I think, that's important, because now we're talking about quantity, we're talking about quality over quantity. And that's what we're all after, right? We want quality leads. We want leads that have a better idea of what they want to buy. We don't want people necessarily, Zillow is for the top of the funnel, right? Zillow, you got a person in there, he's starting to look at houses in Burlington, Vermont. But he hasn't really figured it out. He's just starting to look. When he's on your website and he's looking at neighborhoods and he's starting to look at homes in neighborhoods, now you've got somebody who's really vested in buying in that area. And one of the things that I didn't touch on, and then we'll be done with this segment. Hopefully I've covered enough, and hopefully you've gotten something out of this. The other thing that I think is really important here is this is where you're going to separate yourself from Zillow. And I don't want to understate that enough, because one of the things we're doing here is we're creating hyper-local content like we've talked about in this series. And Zillow can only get so far down, right? They can create that Burlington page, they can create that Burlington community page, but when you start splintering it off into neighborhoods and you start linking those neighborhood pages to blog posts, Google just simply can't keep up. Zillow simply can't keep up with creating that content at that scale nationwide. And the other thing that is really important about this is that you are linking to your own pages that are rec search pages that have the listings on them and are integrated with the IDX. And let me tell you why. Another thing that we overlook, just like we overlook community pages, we overlook the integrated IDX. Remember this, Zillow, because they're almost interchangeable at this point when we talk about real estate. Zillow is not integrated with the IDX. That is a massive advantage you have over Zillow. You are integrated with the IDX. You have all the listings. Zillow does not. And this is the only way you're going to be able to start knocking down the barrier. So when people say, I can't compete with Zillow, I say, that's not true. This is the way you compete with Zillow. You just don't know what content to build. And once you start working on the community page, and once you let that lead you in directions as far as blog posts and recommended searches, you will be competing with Zillow. And you know, not to get too over dramatic here, I think this is the only way to keep Zillow from really, really commoditizing this industry and really taking over the industry, period. The president of our company, the founder of our company, Ted, had just gone to a conference, T360 conference down in Florida. And one of the speakers, and I don't remember his name, got up and said, hey, you know, look, Zillow is their market cap is equal to all the other brands in real estate. KW, RE/MAX, Realogy, all those brands, add them all up, they equal the market cap for Zillow. So you better be scared of Zillow. Zillow is going to do whatever's in their best interest, not yours. And you need to start owning your audience. You need to start building pages that compete with Zillow and actually make you more valuable than Zillow. And that starts with the community page and ends with building out very big, valuable vaults and libraries of information on community pages. The next episode is going to be on blogging. I'm going to get into blogging a little bit more as it relates to the community page and as it relates to the neighborhood pages. And I think this is really where you start separating yourself and how you don't make blogs invisible and just floating into the ether of the internet, never to be seen again, but actually create blog posts that you don't have to create all the time, and you don't have to worry about how often you create them, but how you link them to the community page. Thank you. I'm Chris Badami. This is with Union Street Media. This is our hyperlocal content series. I look forward to seeing you next week.